Welcome to a spine-tingling investigation into the unsettling incidents of kids rebelling against their parents. In this episode, we explore two unsettling cases connected by the heinousness of their crimes as we dig into the shadowy world of parasitic acts. Even though there is little information available for each case, we must tell the stories because they are too horrific to keep to ourselves. What dreadful notion could be worse than that of one's own flesh and blood, the children they have raised and adored, rebelling against the very hands that have cradled them? Please support the cause by giving this video a like and share your thoughts on it if you find it fascinating before we continue. Your comments support the channel's expansion. Additionally, remember to subscribe for more compelling stuff. I'm grateful. We begin with a disturbing incident that happened in Russia. We are unable to reveal the identity of a 14-year-old schoolgirl who was just arrested on suspicion of planning the assassination of her single mother, Anastasia Milosskaya, due to legal restrictions. A 38-year-old estate agent named Anastasia was sadly killed in the city of Milosskaya, which is located near Moscow. A 15-year-old kid who had been residing with the family and was the girl's boyfriend was also detained. It's thought that the mother forbade her daughter from visiting the boy because she thought he was a harmful influence and should go. Authorities believe that the guy and the daughter planned to hire two other teens and pay them 350,000 rubles, $3,650, each to commit the horrific act. The accused teens, who range in age from 14 to 17, are currently suspected of either murder or conspiracy to murder. The boyfriend and daughter are charged with allowing their helpers entry to the residence where they both allegedly saw the alleged contract killers viciously abuse Anastasia when she got home from work. According to reports, her own daughter allegedly planned the horrifying act of violence that saw her battered and strangled to death. For 2 days, the alleged murderers allowed Anastasia's lifeless body to rot inside the flat. Amazingly, the daughter and her boyfriend kept residing in the same home, displaying full disregard for the horrific scene and the overpowering smell of death. The two young hitmen are thought to have returned to the crime scene after those unsettling 2 days, wrapped Anastasia's body in plastic, and dumped her remains in a nearby. Detectives think that Anastasia had over £30,000 in savings, which she intended to use to support her kid and her lover. They aimed to create a future for the girl that would grow from the loss of her own mother. Anastasia's face was red and swollen, witnesses said, showing signs of the terrible beating and strangulation she underwent. The 14-year-old girl's friend noted that despite her mother being a lovely person who loved her, she frequently complained about hating her. The girl's grandma ascribed the guy, who came from a challenging household, as having a negative influence on her granddaughter's behavior. The teens charged in this case are still being investigated, and they might be given a maximum of 10 years in a juvenile facility. It is unclear if any exceptions will be granted by the authorities given the upsetting and horrific nature of the crime. Our second case takes us to the town of Mistelbach, in central Germany, where the tight identity regulations of the nation only permit us to know the people involved by their first names. Hannah, a disturbed 17-year-old who frequently argued with her parents, Antje and Stefan, two well-liked doctors in their neighborhood, are at the core of this terrifying case. There were 3 more siblings among the ages of 6 and 14, in addition to Hannah. Hannah's connection with her parents was characterized by frequent disobedience and conflict in a home full of tension and strife. Hannah confessed in a classmate one fateful day after school, revealing her wish to hurt her parents and said, "Now I'm going to have to go home to those souls. I'll kill them one day." In the fall of 2021, when things at home got worse, Antje sought to the Youth Welfare Office for help enrolling in a self-defense school out of concern for the safety of her other kids. Anka and Stefan were scared of Hannah, who had a strong animosity for her parents, the court that presided over the case revealed. They chose to accept Hannah's lover, Felix, into their family in spite of their apprehension. Hannah's allegations of parental abuse were successful in convincing Felix, who had been expelled from his own home by his drug-addicted parents, that he needed to defend his girlfriend. Since Felix was vulnerable, Hannah was aware that her parents' decision to invite him merely increased the risk in their house. The young couple began their evil scheme on a regular night in January 2022 when the family had gathered to watch a movie. They looked up the legality of a 16-year-old living alone in their parents' home after they passed away on Google before carrying out their horrific deed. This terrifying question revealed their plan to rob the family of their home after the heinous deed. Hannah gave Felix a headlamp and gloves as they prepared for the worst, and Felix armed himself with an 8-centimeter blade. Hannah appeared to become uncomfortably excited as they got closer to the parents' bedroom. Felix allegedly heard her say, "You look really sexy." Everyone engaged in that incident would have their lives forever altered by what they did, breaking a once loving family with the darkness that had crept into their house. The night's quiet was shattered at 12:30 a.m. by Felix's ruthless assault. He delivered his first blow, stabbing Hannah's father in the head, while completely enveloped in darkness. When he was roused from his slumber, Stefan fought back bravely, but the constant barrage of 9 knife wounds to his neck and 12 more to his head ultimately ended his life. Felix then turned to look at Anka with a vicious glare as her anguished screams pierced the air. The horror woke Hannah's 14-year-old brother, who hurried to his mother's rescue only to discover his sister in his way. Hannah told him without feeling, "Felix is downstairs and is killing our parents." The siblings frantically dialed for assistance, terrified and horrified. In order to call the police, the younger brother even grabbed a knife. But Felix grabbed the knife, put his bleeding hand over the brother's mouth, and seized the phone. Hannah blocked their way, reassuring them that everything would be alright and that Felix, being 18, could adopt them all. Hannah was unmoved by her siblings' pleading. The two murderers traveled roughly 4 kilometers in their flight following their heinous deeds. On January 9th, when daylight dawned, Felix brought himself into the police and confessed to his terrifying crimes, feeling depressed by the dismal truth of his deeds. The 19-year-old displayed regret throughout the trial, which was obvious to everyone, and he was finally given a 13.5-year prison term. Hannah, in stark contrast, continued to be cloaked in frigid denial and denied any involvement in the heinous acts. She concocted a labyrinth of falsehoods, saying she had been asleep during the murders and had only heard her mother's screams when she awoke. Hannah said that it was out of care for her brother that she had interfered with his frantic request for assistance. The judge exposed Hannah's dishonesty, however, when she made severe but ultimately baseless charges of abuse against her own parents. Hannah received a 9.5-year prison term. Both prisoners appeared impassive as they stared intently away from one another at the table after learning their fates. We are confronted with the unnerving reality of kids who are driven to kill their own parents as we think back on the horrifying examples of Hannah and the unidentified Russian girl. While the surviving siblings struggle with the trauma imposed upon them, the young murderers now must deal with the dire consequences of their deeds. Our episode comes to an end now.